Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Off the Dome podcast. It is season 3. It is episode 18. The NBA playoffs are just around the corner. As I'm recording this right now, the playing games are going on. So I thought we'd look. Actually, the Eastern Conference playing games are all done right now. It's just the final one between the Clippers and the Pelicans. This episode is just going to be me going through my predictions for the Eastern Conference playoff bracket. My next podcast will be my Western Conference playoff predictions. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say that these playoffs are going to be absolutely incredible. I'm very excited. The Eastern Conference is very interesting. The whole deal with the Toronto Raptors and the COVID the coronavirus is going to play a big part in these playoffs. Potentially could play a very big part in these playoffs. There will be playing a part in these playoffs because Matisse Thybulle will not be playing in the first round in Toronto, in games in Toronto, games in Canada. Matisse Thybulle, who's not vaccinated, or he doesn't have both COVID vaccines, which makes no sense. He got one and didn't get the other. I don't quite understand it, but it's whatever. We're going to get into all of that kind of stuff in this episode of the Off the Dome podcast. The playing games were pretty fun. Couple blowouts. Or the Hawks Hornets was a blowout. The Nets Cavaliers looked like it was going to be a blowout, but the Cavs pulled it back, and then Cavs Hawks looked like it was going to be a blowout, and then the Hawks pulled it back and won it. Very interesting stuff. I think the 8 best teams in the Eastern Conference are in. I would like to say I feel bad for the Cleveland Cavaliers. RIP the Cavs, because the Cavs had a great year. Quickly, we should be touching on the Cavs here real quick, because the Cleveland's season will not go unnoticed in my books. This team was a 7 seed, a couple weeks ago. This team they were a 6 seed a couple weeks ago. They kind of had the wheels sort of fell off at the end of the year, but in a year where the Cleveland Cavaliers were missing guys like Ricky Rubio, Colin Sexton, Jarrett Allen toward the end of the year, these guys we all thought would be dead in the water. We all thought Cleveland would have no shot. We all thought Cleveland was done for. We thought Cleveland were flukes back in December when they held the 4 seed, and a good way into the season, Cleveland held the 4 seed. Then they lose Ricky Rubio. They lose Colin Sexton. They lose Jarrett Allen toward the end of the season. Darius Garland steps up. Lauri Markkanen steps up. Kevin Love has a 6th Man of the Year caliber campaign. Cleveland's excellently coached, and a lot of other guys stepped up for the Cavs. It's unfortunate that their season won't be rewarded with a playoff appearance, but Cleveland, they're an exciting young team. They look good, and I really want to see them in the playoffs at least next year, because I do believe that they deserve it. They were a 6 seed not too long ago, but teams like Toronto caught fire. Brooklyn passed them in the standings and then beat them at home. And even in the play-in games, man, it was Trae Young's experience. Bogdanovich kept the Hawks in it, but Trae Young's experience in the second half took the game over. Cleveland just doesn't have any postseason experience whatsoever. Guys like Jarrett Allen, LeVert played a little bit back in Brooklyn in that first round series against Philadelphia. The Jared Dudley series, if any of you guys remember that. But without further ado, we should get into this. I'm going to start at the top. The team that just got into the playoffs against the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, in the Miami Heat. I'm surprised the Miami Heat was able to maintain the 1 seed. I thought, because there was a point there where Miami dropped down a 3rd, and I started calling them flukes. I'm like, look, this team, I don't think that they're all that. And I was calling them flukes all year long. I was like, this team is overrated. They have no chance. They're not real contenders in the NBA. They just are not. Okay, and the thing I would reference all year long was that, look, for teams to be, in my book, a contender, a real contender, are teams that I can visually picture in my mind to be lifting the Larry O.B. at the end of the season. Miami, I couldn't do that until, I'm not going to lie, recently. Because I look back since 1980, every single team in the NBA that wins championships, other than a few anomalies, the Pistons in 04, the Mavs in 2011, the Bad Boy Pistons in 89 and 90. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. But all the other teams had a definitive top 5, top 6-ish, 7-ish player in the league on their team. Spurs in 2014, another anomaly when it comes to that. And I'm thinking, listen, Miami, they're going to have to be an anomaly to be a contender this year. Well, I think that if there is going to be the next anomaly, the next team to win an NBA championship without having they don't even have a top 10 player in the NBA, in my opinion, right now, I wouldn't consider Jimmy Butler to be a top 10 player, but he's definitely hovering in there. But most teams that win championships, other than maybe 5 or 6 in the last 40, 50 years, have had a top 5, top 6, top 7 player on their team. Miami does not have that this year. But when I'm looking through all the other teams that made it, they have the same. Miami has the same DNA as those teams. Hard-nosed teams, excellent defensively. They'll outwork you. They are a tough out, and they'll have home court advantage throughout the playoffs. They will not go down without a fight. With that being said, Heat against the Atlanta Hawks. I've got the Heat winning that in 5 games. I like the Hawks, but there's really no debate in this. I don't think anyone's picking the Hawks to go anywhere in this. Really, I'll give the Hawks 1 game. I'll give Trae Young 1 game because it is Trae Young. And I bet he'll probably win that 1 game in Miami just because Trae Young is the villain that he is. I reckon the Hawks, they'll probably make it a 1-1 series against Miami. But the Heat will eventually overpower the Atlanta Hawks, as you'd expect. So I'll take the Heat in 5 games in that one. The next one, the 4 seeds, Philadelphia against the 5 seed, Toronto. Now, this is the most interesting series, I think, in the first round. This is the series that I'm the most excited for. Actually, maybe the Celtics-Nets one. No. I'm Canadian. I think the Raptors have been really hyped this year, and I'm saying the 76ers and Raptors is the most exciting series for me to watch in the first round. I understand that the box office is going to say Nets and Celtics. Me personally, I'm going to be more excited to watch 76ers and Toronto, and there's so many different storylines. Matisse Thybulle can't play in Canada because he has only got 1 vaccine. He can't cross the border and play there or some shit. He just can't cross the border, I don't think. James Harden, that whole trade with James Harden, was it all worth it? Because when you make a move like that, you're in win now. The 76ers, man, they haven't got past the second round of the playoffs. They've had 2 chances recently to get past the second round of the playoffs, especially last year. They couldn't make it past the second round last year. Are you kidding me? Against Atlanta, no one was picking the Hawks in that series, or very few people were picking the Hawks in that series. Most people were picking the Hawks to lose in the first round against the Knicks last year. I did, and a lot of other people did. The 76ers need to win this series. They truly do. And in the playoffs, when I'm looking, because here's the thing, okay, I'm looking at these 2 teams. I'm looking at Philadelphia and Toronto, and I see 2 teams that either one of these teams can obviously win. We know that. For me, this is almost like splitting. It's like splitting hairs between the 76ers and the Raptors. And when I kind of get into that mode, I ask myself, okay, what wins in the playoffs? And what wins in the playoffs is the best players. The teams with the best players will win the series, or normally will win the series, wins the championships. Superstars win in the playoffs. That's why they're so valuable. That's why teams do everything they can to get these guys together. And when I'm looking at Philadelphia versus Toronto, the 76ers had the 2 best players on the court, or should have the 2 best players on the court. If Siakam plays better than James Harden does, myself and pretty much everybody other than Raptors fans will be like, what the fuck? That shouldn't happen. Okay. Even most Raptors fans will be like, yeah, Harden is objectively better than Pascal Siakam, just like Embiid is. Just like the Raptors the 76ers are the 2 best players on the court. And when I'm looking at the NBA playoffs, when I'm deciding between a series, I'm thinking, all right, what team has the best players when everything else is pretty much equal? That's why I'm going to pick the 76ers. I'm going to pick the 76ers to win that series in 6 games and advance to play Miami in the second round. Chicago against the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to go straight out and say this is the only sweep I have of the first round in the Eastern Conference, or the only sweep I have in the Eastern Conference predicted. This should be 4 games. Chicago, look, I call the Bulls flukes all year long. Even when they had the 2 seed, I was like, these guys aren't for real. They're pretenders. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm this great genius who predicted Chicago's downfall, who predicted the Bulls to fall to the 6th seed. Because, yes, I did think Chicago was going to fall. Yes, even if the Bulls were fully healthy right now, I wouldn't think that they're that good. Okay, but the reason why they fell wasn't because they weren't good. The reason why they fell is because they lost guys like Caruso for a large part of the season, and they don't have Lonzo Ball. Okay, that's why they fell. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and be like, look, I'm this genius who knew they were going to fall because they're bad. No. All right, if it hadn't been for DeMar DeRozan having that incredible stretch of 8 games where he had 35-plus points and he was shooting 50% from the field, and people were calling him the MVP, the Bulls were probably, they probably would be in the play-in games because DeRozan kept them afloat during that stretch, and he was hitting game winners like crazy. But Unfortunately for Chicago, injuries caught up to them, which sucks. I hate that. And I hope next year that guys like Lonzo and Caruso can stay healthy, and because I want to see a full strength Chicago team. I want to see DeMar DeRozan one last time, deep in the playoffs. It'd be very interesting to see that. I'd like to see DeMar DeRozan in the finals, though I don't think it'll happen on Chicago. I don't think it'll happen as him being the number one option. I'm not gonna lie. But I think the Bucks, the championship experience, we saw how the Bucks handled the Miami Heat last year in the first round. This is a very similar kind of thing. It's a team with a lot to prove in Chicago, but I just think, Milwaukee's too good for them. They really are. They got the championship DNA, they got the defense, and they got Giannis Antetokounmpo. They do, and that's what it comes down to. So I'm going to pick the Bucks in 4 games. I'm not even giving Chicago 1 game. I'm giving the Hawks more games than Chicago in the first round. Boston against the Brooklyn Nets. I said Philadelphia was a toss-up. Philadelphia, Toronto, that was a toss-up. I picked Philadelphia in that one. Brooklyn against Boston. This was obviously, for me, I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but in my opinion, this is obviously the most difficult series to predict in the first round. It could go either way. Because the upside, similar to Philadelphia, really, Brooklyn and Philadelphia, a lot of similarities. Their upside is huge. Their upside is they got 2 of the 10 best players in the NBA, can win you an NBA championship. Plain and simple. They can. But the downside is there too. The downside is James Harden is incredibly streaky recently. The Brooklyn Nets played damn near perfect against the Cavaliers and still hardly won that game. There's a lot of ups and downs, but when I look at Boston against Brooklyn, and I'm thinking, what team has the best players? And that is the Brooklyn Nets. The Celtics are a deeper team. Celtics have everything. Celtics are, in every way, shape, or form, Boston is better than the Brooklyn Nets. However, Boston don't have Kevin Durant and don't have Kyrie Irving. It's a pretty elementary it might be a pretty elementary argument, but it's the playoffs, and we see it every single year that the teams with the best players win. Over 4 games, over 7 games, the teams with the best players will come out 4 times out of those 7 games. They will. Now, with that being said, though, I'm kind of going to be a hypocrite here. I'm going to say that if the Celtics still had Williams, I would easily pick Boston in this series. I would. That Williams injury, for me, has really made the Eastern Conference more interesting. I would be perfectly comfortable with picking the Boston Celtics to represent the East in the NBA Finals right now if they had Williams, because of how good he was on defense for them, because of what he brought to the table for them. Now, I get maybe I'm overreacting to this guy, I'm overrating this guy, I'm overvaluing Williams. I just think that if Williams was there for Boston, they could take down the Nets. He's not there. I say the series goes 7 games, but I think Brooklyn Nets, it's Kevin Durant, really. I love Kyrie, I do, but in Game 7, because that's what I think it'll go to. I think it'll go to a 7th game, and I'm envisioning this 7th game at the TD Garden. And on one side, you got Jason Tatum, you got Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, some good players, but on the other side, you got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Now you tell me what team you're gonna pick. KD and Kyrie all day, and don't sleep on Patty Mills either. He's gonna hit a few big shots in the series if Brooklyn's gonna win it. Second round now, Miami against Philadelphia. Miami, man, they're scary. They really are scary. I'm much bigger on the Miami Heat now than I was a week ago, than I was 2 weeks ago. Miami was one of my teams that I called a pretender, but I don't think they are that anymore. There was a few weeks ago I said Philadelphia had a better chance of going to the NBA Finals than the Miami Heat did. I do not believe that anymore. I've watched games. My opinion has switched. I changed my mind. I'm picking Miami over Philadelphia in 6 games. I think Miami has the answer for James Harden. They have the answer for James Harden. Do they have the answer for Joel Embiid? I don't believe so. I don't think anybody has the answer for Joel Embiid. You're going to have to live with Joel Embiid giving you 25 to 30 points a game. But because the Heat are the kind of team that can hold teams to less than 100 points. They really are. Now, I could see Philadelphia, as good as they are on offense, to struggle to get to 100 points, 105 points, especially later on in the series. It's going to be very difficult. We've seen James Harden. I'm a big James Harden fan, man. I dick ride James Harden constantly. But at the end of the day, I got to look at James Harden's career, and I got to look at what he's done since I started really paying attention to him and watching him and praising James Harden religiously in the regular season. I have to take a hard look in the mirror and say, look, I've been praising a guy that is great in the regular season, but what's he done in the playoffs? Really, what's he done? Sure, he's lost to great teams. The teams he loses to goes on and wins a championship more often than not. You look at the Bucks last year. You look at the Lakers the year before that. You look at the Warriors all those times. The team that James Harden loses to goes on wins the NBA championship. It's not like he's losing in the playoffs to shitty teams. He's losing in the playoffs to really good teams. But he's losing nonetheless. He's not putting his best foot forward nonetheless. It's time I look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, look, this is the guy you're defending constantly. I can't do that anymore. James Harden's past his prime. He's a great facilitator still. He really is. Joel Embiid is the guy for Philadelphia. But I got Miami because they can grind you down. They really can. I don't know if any of you guys watched the UEFA Champions League, if any of you guys watch soccer in Europe, football. The Miami Heat are a little bit like Atletico Madrid in the Champions League against when Miami Heat's obviously a better team compared to the other teams in their league than Atletico Madrid is, but it's the same sort of thing where they will grind you down and they will win games by just, the way that Khabib Nurmagomedov wins UFC games or fights. It's not often the best looking games, the best looking fights. He gets it done though. And I think Miami can get it done. Miami's not going to beat you with their high-powered offense, but they're going to beat you by just never giving up and outworking you and just being insufferable to score against. They'll frustrate the shit out of you. Now, switching over to a rematch of last year's second-round matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. Oh my God. I really can't wait for this. I cannot wait. I really the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs is going to be so exciting. Regardless of who wins, if the Raptors beat the 76ers and play the Heat in the second round, Heat Raptors will be incredible. Kyle Lowry back in Toronto, and that will be incredible. Just like if the Celtics, it doesn't matter if the Bucks play the Celtics or the Nets, that second round series will be incredible. I think the Bucks will play the Celtics, I think the Bucks will play the Nets, and I'm gonna take the Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games in that series because, look, they beat them last year, and I think they got the championship DNA. I think the Nets have the players, and I think the Nets can rely on Kevin Durant and Kyrie to carry them through the Celtics series, but I don't think that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to get beat by just 2 guys. I really don't think that'll happen. Sure, the Nets might go up 2-0 in the series. Okay, Phoenix went up 2-0 on the Bucks, but it's the Milwaukee Bucks. They got Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I believe is the best player in the world right now. They have Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis. All these guys who played big roles on the team last year to win the NBA championship. I have a difficult time believing that the other guys on Brooklyn can compete. Because KD's going to get his buckets. Kyrie's going to get their buckets. But that's only going to account for, 75, 80 points on a good night, on a really good night. That's on the high side. That's both of them scoring 40. Where's the rest of the points coming from? Because Brooklyn's not a great defensive team. You're going to need, if KD and Kyrie give you 40 each, you're still going to need 30 to 40 points if you want to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, because the Bucks have a high-powered offense, and you could argue an even better defense. And it's for that reason I got the Bucks going on to the conference finals, where they will play the Miami Heat. In my opinion, my Eastern Conference Finals matchup prediction is the Miami Heat, the 1 seed, taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, the 3 seed. The third straight year the Heat have played the Bucks in the playoffs. The last time we saw it was last year. The Bucks took them down in 4 games. The time before that, the Heat in 2020 in the bubble beat the Bucks in the conference finals in 6 games. They beat them in the second round in 6 games. Look, this is the tiebreaker here. It'll finally tell us what team is truly better. And I got the Bucks winning this series in 7 games. If this series goes 7, man, I swear, like, fuck, that'll be incredible. That will be incredible. And it's going to take another Giannis Antetokounmpo 45, 40 piece to take down the Miami Heat. And I got the Bucks advancing to the NBA Finals. That's the team I have representing the Eastern Conference right now. The Bucks, I can praise them all. I'll praise them all day. They have one real, true superstar. They have one superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and just a bunch of guys around him that fit his system perfectly, that can knock down threes, that are great defensively. Chris Middleton has stepped up in a role that he can hit shots and take over late in games when you need a ball handler, and Giannis isn't the answer anymore. Drew Holiday can do the same thing on occasion. I think the addition of Drew Holiday, was it last year? That was the Raptors getting Marc Gasol in 2019. That's the one trade. That's the key to unlock the rest of the team. That's the key to unlock the championship DNA. Just one player who, before Holiday was in Milwaukee, we didn't really give him that much attention. He was extremely underrated. No one really was hyping up Drew Holiday like that. Same as Marc Gasol back in Toronto. It's obviously a little bit different. I think Drew Holiday's a little bit better than Marc Gasol was back then. But it's the same sort of thing where it's that one player that you don't really think about. But once you make that trade, you realize, okay, Marc Gasol is a key to this team's defense and he unlocks the whole team. Drew Holiday, the same thing. He was the guy. Once you got Drew Holiday, you're like, all right, holy shit, we got something real here. That's it. So those are my Eastern Conference predictions. I'll go through them real quick. Heat and Hawks in the first round. I got the Heat winning that in 5 games. 76ers against Toronto. I'll take the 76ers in 6 games. Wouldn't be surprised if the Raptors win that, though. Bucks and Bulls. I got Bucks in 4. Chicago, get out of here. Nets, Celtics. I got the Nets in 7. That's like splitting hairs between those two teams. Honestly, you can go either way. Heat and 76ers in the second round. I'm going to take the Miami Heat in 6 games. Bucks and Nets in the second round. I got the Milwaukee Bucks winning that rematch in 6 games. And then for the 3rd year in a row, I think the Bucks will play the Miami Heat in the NBA playoffs. This time, I got the Milwaukee Bucks winning it in 7 games, representing the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. Ladies and gentlemen, that's really it. That's all I got to talk about in this podcast episode. I hope you did enjoy. I hope, if you're watching this, listening to this right now, I appreciate you. I really do. And that's going to do it for me. That's life. I can't wait for the playoffs. It's going to be it's going to be incredible. That's it for me. It's whatever. I'm feeling good, living better. Peace out, y'all. Drake once said that.